The architecture of calm. If you pause for a moment, right now, right where you are, and listen, what do you hear? Perhaps it is the low, electric hum of a refrigerator, the distant, rhythmic whoosh of traffic on a wet highway, or the aggressive vibration of a phone on a wooden table. These are the sounds of the modern ecosystem. But beneath them lies a different kind of noise, one that does not register on a decibel meter. It is the noise of the mind. It is the silent, frantic chatter that wakes you at 3:14 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you sent that email, if you saved enough money, or if the subtle change in a friend's tone meant the end of a relationship. We are living in an era of unprecedented stimulation. The human brain, a marvelous biological machine evolved to scan the savannah for predators and track the seasons, is now tasked with processing a deluge of data that never sleeps. We carry the world in our pockets. We invite the tragedies of distant continents into our bedrooms before we have even brushed our teeth. The result is not just fatigue, it is a chronic, low-grade vibration of the soul that we call anxiety. This book is not a list of chores. It is not another demand on your time. You will not find aggressive commands to hustle harder or crush your goals here. Instead, consider this audio experience an act of subtraction. We are going to peel away the layers of artificial urgency that have calcified around your life. We are going to explore the neuroscience of fear, not to bore you with Latin terminology, but to hand you the schematics of your own nervous system. When you understand the machinery, you stop being a passenger in a runaway car and start becoming the driver. Anxiety, in its most basic form, is a misplaced time traveler. It is the mind's refusal to inhabit the present moment. It is an obsession with a future that has not happened, constructed entirely out of fears from the past. It feels like a tightening of the chest, a shallowness of breath, a phantom weight pressing down on the shoulders. It is the scent of adrenaline when there is no tiger in the room. To understand how to dismantle this mechanism, we must first look at the environment we have built. Picture the average morning. The alarm cuts through the dream state. Before the eyes have fully adjusted to the morning light, the hand reaches for the screen. The blue light floods the retina, signaling the brain to wake up, but the content signals the brain to panic. Headlines, emails, social comparisons. In a matter of seconds, the cortisol levels, the stress hormone, spike. The body prepares for battle before the feet even touch the floor. This is not a moral failing on your part. It is a biological mismatch. You are wearing a biological suit designed for the Paleolithic era, trying to navigate a digital metropolis. Your amygdala, the ancient sentinel of the brain responsible for detecting threats, cannot distinguish between a lion in the bushes and an overdue invoice. To the body, the threat feels the same. The heart rate elevates, digestion slows, and blood rushes to the major muscle groups. You are primed to run, but you are sitting in a traffic jam or standing in a crowded subway car. The energy has nowhere to go. It turns inward. It becomes the shaking hand, the racing thought, the sudden irritability. Throughout this journey, we will walk through the corridors of the mind with a lantern. We will look at the science of the vagus nerve, the superhighway that connects your brain to your body, and learn how to hack it to induce immediate calm. We will explore the philosophy of detachment, not as a way of not caring, but as a way of caring for the right things. We will learn to distinguish between useful worry, which solves problems, and toxic worry, which merely chews on them. Imagine a glass of water held in an outstretched hand. If you hold it for a minute, it is light. If you hold it for an hour, your arm aches. If you hold it for a day, your arm goes numb and paralyzed. The weight of the glass hasn't changed, but the longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Anxiety is that glass. This book is the permission you need to put it down. We will move slowly. There is no rush here. The cadence of these words is designed to match the rhythm of a resting heart rate. As you listen, I want you to pay attention to the physical sensations of the present moment. The texture of the fabric against your skin. The temperature of the air entering your nostrils. The solid ground beneath you. These are your anchors. The mind may try to fly away into the storm clouds of what if, but the body is always here, always now. Let us begin by acknowledging a simple, profound truth: you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. You are the sky, and the thoughts are merely the weather. The storm may rage, the thunder may rattle the windows, but the sky remains untouched, vast, and permanent. In the chapters that follow, we are going to learn how to find that patch of blue, even when the rain is falling hardest. Chapter 1: The Misguided Protector. To understand anxiety, we must first extend a hand of compassion to the machinery of our own biology. It is easy to view the anxious body as a traitor, a saboteur that shakes, sweats, and hyperventilates at the most inconvenient times. But the truth is far more generous. Your body is not trying to hurt you, it is trying, with desperate and ancient intensity, to save your life. It is simply confused about the nature of the threat. Deep within the temporal lobes of your brain, shaped like two small almonds, rests the amygdala. For the sake of our journey, let us call this the Watchman. The Watchman has been part of the human operating system for millions of years. His job is singular and critical: to scan the environment for danger and to mobilize the body for survival. He is not a thinker, he is a reactor. He does not understand logic, nuanced social dynamics, or the concept of a credit score. He understands only two states: safe and unsafe. When the Watchman perceives a threat, a shadow in the grass, the snap of a twig, or in modern terms, "we need to talk" text message, he bypasses the rational, thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, and slams his hand on the panic button. This is not a metaphor, it is a physiological takeover. In an instant, the sympathetic nervous system activates. The adrenal glands dump a cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream. Your pupils dilate to sharpen your vision. Your digestion halts because you do not need to process nutrients when you are about to be eaten. Your heart beats faster to pump oxygen-rich blood to your major muscle groups, preparing you to fight the predator or flee into the safety of the trees. This mechanism is brilliant. If you were indeed standing face to face with a wolf, this reaction would be the superhero prowess that saves your life. But here is the tragedy of the modern condition: the Watchman cannot distinguish between a wolf and a worry. He cannot tell the difference between a physical threat to your life and an ego threat to your reputation. So, when you are sitting in a meeting and your boss questions your performance, the Watchman sees the predator. He dumps the fuel into your blood. Your heart races, your hands tremble, your stomach churns. But you cannot fight your boss, and you cannot run out of the conference room. You are forced to sit still. That massive surge of survival energy is trapped within the container of your body. It vibrates. It manifests as that crawling sensation under your skin, that tightness in the throat that feels like you are choking on air. This is the false alarm. It is a smoke detector that is so sensitive it goes off not just when the house is on fire, but when you light a candle for dinner. The first step in quieting the noise is to recognize this biological hijack when it happens. Usually, we spiral. We feel the physical sensation of fear, and our rational mind immediately tries to find a reason for it. My heart is racing, therefore something must be terribly wrong. We attach the fear to our health, our relationships, or our future. We feed the fire with catastrophic thoughts. Instead, I invite you to try a different approach. The next time you feel that surge, the heat in the cheeks, the shallow breath, pause. Visual the Watchman. Imagine him standing at the control panel of your brain, frantic, holding a red flare. He is screaming, "Danger! Danger!" Do not scream back at him. Do not hate him. He is just an outdated software running on modern hardware. Gently, internally, acknowledge him. I see you. I know you are trying to protect me. But there is no tiger here. We are safe. It sounds simplistic, but this act of separation is profound. You are decoupling the physical sensation from the narrative of doom. You are recognizing that just because the alarm is ringing, it does not mean the building is burning. We must also understand the cost of living in a state of chronic activation. When the body is constantly primed for battle, it never enters the rest and digest state necessary for repair. This is why anxiety is so often accompanied by exhaustion. You are running a marathon while sitting at your desk. You are fighting a war while lying in your bed. The energy expenditure is real, even if the enemy is invisible. In the chapters to come, we will learn how to manually override this system. We cannot fire the watchman, we need him for actual emergencies, but we can teach him to relax. We can recalibrate the smoke detector so that it allows us to cook a meal without deafening us. But for now, take a deep breath. Feel the air expand your ribcage. Let it go slowly. That simple act is the first signal to the watchman that the emergency is over. If you were running from a tiger, you would not be breathing slowly. By controlling the breath, you are sending a reverse signal up the vagus nerve, from the body to the brain, whispering a message that the primitive mind can understand: we are safe. We are here. The predator is gone. Chapter 2, The Cortisol Loop. The morning is the rudder of the day. If the rudder is set slightly to the left or right at the moment of departure, by evening, you will find yourself miles away from your intended destination. For the anxious mind, the battle is often lost before the feet even touch the floorboards. To understand why, we must examine the chemistry of waking up. In a perfectly balanced biological system, the body begins the waking process long before your eyes open. About an hour before you regain consciousness, your body temperature rises, and your adrenal glands release a surge of cortisol. This phenomenon is known by scientists as the cortisol awakening response, or CAR. It is not a bad thing, it is nature's ignition spark. It is the fuel designed to lift the heavy machinery of the body out of sleep and into the world. It provides the energy to hunt, to gather, to build. However, in our modern architecture of noise, we have corrupted this delicate ignition sequence. Consider the typical morning. The alarm rings, a digital siren that shatters the fragile theta brainwaves of the dream state. The body jolts. The first movement of the hand is not to stretch, nor to touch a partner, nor to pull back the sheets. The hand reaches for the phone. In the darkness of the bedroom, the screen glows like a harsh, blue sun. In that split second, you invite the entire world into your bed. Before your brain has had a chance to orient itself in time and space, it is bombarded. A work email demanding a report. A news notification about a disaster across the ocean. A social media feed showcasing the curated perfection of a stranger's life. This is the critical error. You are taking that natural surge of cortisol, energy meant for physical movement and starting the day, and you are spiking it with psychological threat. You are revving the engine while the car is still in the garage. The brain, still soft and pliable from sleep, is instantly forced from the relaxed, creative alpha state into the high-frequency, jagged beta state. You have skipped the transition. You have gone from 0 to 60 in a second, emotionally speaking. This creates a surplus of nervous energy that has nowhere to go. It settles in the stomach. It tightens the jaw. It creates a hum of background dread that whispers, you are already behind. You are already late. You are not enough. This initiates what we shall call the cortisol loop. When you start the day in a reactive state, reacting to emails, reacting to news, reacting to the demands of others, you signal to your nervous system that you are under siege. The watchman, whom we met in the previous chapter, nods grimly and keeps the stress hormones flowing. Because you feel rushed, you drink your coffee too fast, which further stimulates the adrenal glands. Because you are caffeinated and anxious, your breathing becomes shallow. Because your breathing is shallow, your brain gets less oxygen, leading to brain fog. Because you have brain fog, you make small mistakes or struggle to focus. These mistakes cause more anxiety, which releases more cortisol. Round and round it goes. The loop tightens. By 2 p.m., you are exhausted, not from physical labor, but from the immense caloric expense of sustaining a state of high alert. Breaking this loop requires a rebellion against the culture of immediacy. It requires the courage to be unconnected for the first 30 minutes of your day. Imagine a different morning. The alarm rings. You turn it off. The phone stays face down. You sit up. You place your feet on the floor and feel the temperature of the wood or the texture of the carpet. You drink a glass of water, hydrating the tissues that have dried out during the night. You look out a window and see natural light, photons that hit the retina and signal the biological clock that it is time to be awake, regulating your mood naturally. In this scenario, the natural cortisol surge is used correctly. It flows into the simple actions of the morning. It is burned off by movement, by showering, by making breakfast. It does not curdle into anxiety. You enter the day acting, not reacting. You are the protagonist of your morning, not a victim of your notifications. The difference between these two mornings is not a matter of time. It takes the same amount of time to scroll through a feed as it does to drink a glass of water and breathe. The difference is attention. If we are to reclaim our peace, we must protect the borders of our mornings with the ferocity of a guard dog. The world will wait. The emails will wait. The chaos will wait. But your peace of mind, once shattered in those first few minutes, is incredibly difficult to piece back together. Chapter 3: The Fracture of Attention. We wear our exhaustion like a medal of valor. In the modern lexicon, to be busy is to be important. If you ask a friend how they are, and they reply, "I am incredibly busy," there is often a subtle undertone of pride. We have been sold a narrative that suggests the human mind is a computer, capable of running dozens of applications simultaneously without losing speed or efficiency. We call this multitasking. But if you look closely at the neuroscience, multitasking is a lie. And it is a lie that is costing you your peace of mind. Imagine a flashlight in a dark room. When you hold the flashlight steady, the beam is strong and clear. You can see the details of the painting on the wall, the texture of the carpet, the dust motes dancing in the light. Now, imagine waving that flashlight back and forth, frantically, between two different corners of the room. You are not illuminating both corners, you are creating a strobe effect. The light becomes a chaotic flicker. You see nothing clearly. You only see snippets, flashes, and disoriented shadows. This is what happens to your brain when you try to answer an email while listening to a podcast and cooking dinner. You are not doing three things at once. You are rapidly switching your attention, swinging the flashlight, back and forth, dozens of times per minute. Neuroscientists call this the switch cost effect. Every time you shift your focus from one task to another, there is a metabolic cost. Your brain has to shut down the neural rules for task A and load the neural rules for task B. This takes time, and it burns glucose, the brain's primary fuel source. When you do this hundreds of times a day, you deplete your cognitive battery before lunch. This is why you can spend an entire day sitting in a chair, moving nothing but your fingers, and yet feel completely physically drained by 5 p.m. You have run a marathon of the mind. But the cost is not just energy, it is depth. Anxiety thrives in the shallows. When we fracture our attention, we lose the ability to sink into the flow state, that blissful, timeless zone where the self dissolves into the task. The flow state is the antithesis of anxiety. In flow, there is no room for worry because the mind is entirely unified with the present action. By constantly interrupting ourselves, we deny ourselves this refuge. We cultivate a popcorn brain, where thoughts pop and burst rapidly, never settling, never cooling. The antidote to this fractured existence is a practice that feels almost rebellious in our fast-paced world: monotasking. Monotasking is the art of doing one thing with the entirety of your being. It is the radical decision to just drink your coffee, without scrolling through the news. It is the decision to walk the dog without listening to an audiobook, simply listening to the sound of paws on pavement and the rustle of wind in the trees. When you first attempt this, it will feel uncomfortable. The silence will feel heavy. The itch to check, to swipe, to distract yourself will be physical. This is the withdrawal symptom of a dopamine-addicted mind. It craves the hit of novelty. But if you stay with the discomfort, if you hold the flashlight steady, a profound shift occurs. The mundane becomes majestic. Consider the simple act of washing dishes. Usually, we rush through it, our minds projected forward to what we will do afterwards: watch TV, go to sleep, finish work. The act of washing is an obstacle to be overcome. But apply the lens of monotasking. Feel the warmth of the soapy water on your hands. Smell the citrus of the soap. Hear the squeak of the clean porcelain. Watch the bubbles iridescently pop under the light. Suddenly, you are not doing a chore, you are having a sensory experience. You are fully inhabiting your life, rather than rushing through it to get to some imaginary future moment where you can finally relax. The relaxation is available right now, inside the task itself. To reclaim your focus, you must become a guardian of your attention. You must create deep work zones where notifications are silenced, where the phone is in another room, where you allow yourself the luxury of completing one thought before starting another. This is not about productivity, though you will inevitably become more productive. This is about sanity. It is about gathering the scattered fragments of your mind and bringing them back home. It is about realizing that you do not need to be a juggler to be worthy. You are allowed to put the balls down. You are allowed to hold just one thing. And in holding that one thing, you may find that it is heavy enough to anchor you, and light enough to set you free. Chapter 4: The Information Diet. If you were to walk into a supermarket and see a product labeled toxic sludge, guaranteed to make you sick, you would likely not buy it. You certainly wouldn't consume it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We are increasingly conscious of what we feed our bodies. We read nutritional labels, we count macros, we avoid high fructose corn syrup because we understand a fundamental biological truth: you become what you consume. If you eat garbage, your body becomes sluggish and inflamed. Yet, when it comes to the mind, we seem to have lost this discernment. We treat our attention like a garbage disposal, willing to swallow whatever is placed in front of us. And in the digital age, what is placed in front of us is a highly processed, hyperpalatable, and ultimately toxic diet of catastrophe. Let us speak plainly about the business model of the modern news cycle. Media outlets are not public service organizations designed to keep you calmly informed, they are corporations designed to keep you engaged. And the most effective way to capture human engagement is not through joy, nuance, or slow-moving progress. It is through fear. In the newsroom, there is an old adage: if it bleeds, it leads. A car crash is more interesting than a car that drives safely to work. A scandal is more clickable than an act of integrity. A war is more televisional than a peace treaty. This creates a distortion field. If you look at the world solely through the window of your screen, you will see a planet that is burning, collapsing, and screaming. You will see a montage of the worst things that have happened to the 8 billion people on Earth in the last 24 hours. The human brain is not equipped to process this scale of tragedy. Remember the Watchman from Chapter 1? He evolved in small tribes where a tragedy was a local, rare event. If you heard a scream, it meant danger was here. Today, when you see a disaster on your phone, the watchman does not know that the event is happening 3,000 miles away. He feels the visceral shock as if it were happening in your living room. The result is empathy fatigue and a pervasive sense of helplessness. You feel the weight of the world's pain, but you have no power to solve it. This gap, between the magnitude of the problem and your ability to act, is the breeding ground of anxiety. This is where the concept of an information diet becomes vital for your mental survival. Just as you would not eat candy for every meal, you cannot consume crisis for every waking hour. This is not a call for ignorance. It is a call for curation. It is the difference between drinking from a garden hose and trying to drink from a fire hose. The former hydrates you, the latter knocks you down. Consider the availability heuristic. This is a psychological shortcut where our brains estimate the probability of an event based on how easily we can recall examples of it. Because the news shows us plane crashes but never shows us the millions of safe landings, we irrationally fear flying while driving comfortably in a car, which is statistically far more dangerous. Our internal map of reality is drawn by the media we consume. If your feed is full of anger, your map of the world will be hostile. If your feed is full of art, nature, and science, your map of the world will be one of curiosity and wonder. So, how do we go on a diet? First, remove the automated delivery systems. Turn off the breaking news notifications. Breaking is a marketing term, not a measure of importance. If something truly catastrophic happens, you will hear about it. You do not need a buzzer in your pocket to tell you instantly. Second, choose your sources. Replace the infinite scroll, which has no end and therefore no satisfying conclusion, with finite media. Read a newspaper article, singular, rather than scrolling a feed. Read a book. Listen to a long-form interview. These formats allow for nuance and context, whereas a headline or a 280-character post is designed only for emotional impact. Third, practice fasting. Give yourself permission to be uninformed about the trivial dramas of the day. Ask yourself, does knowing this piece of information change how I will live my life today? Can I do anything about it? If the answer is no, let it pass. You are not a bad citizen for protecting your peace. You are actually a better one, because a calm, centered person is far more capable of helping their community than a person paralyzed by global dread. As you step away from the constant stream, you may feel a phantom twitch, the fear of missing out. But soon, that will be replaced by something far more valuable, the presence of missing out. You will miss the outrage, but you will gain the sunset. You will miss the scandal, but you will gain the ability to look into the eyes of the person across the table from you and truly listen. You are reclaiming the bandwidth of your own soul. Chapter 5, The Comparison Trap. There was a time, not so long ago, when your sphere of comparison was limited to the people you could physically see. You compared your home to your neighbor's home. You compared your shoes to your colleague's shoes. The circle was small, manageable, and largely comprised of people in your same socioeconomic bracket. If you felt envy, it was local. It was contained. Today, we carry a global amphitheater of perfection in our pockets. When you unlock your phone and open a social media application, you are not stepping into a neutral space. You are stepping into a curated museum of the human experience, but it is a museum where the exhibits are rigged. You see the vacation in the Maldives, but not the credit card debt used to pay for it. You see the smiling couple at the anniversary dinner, but not the silent, icy drive home. You see the entrepreneur's massive success, but not the decade of crushing anxiety and near bankruptcy that preceded it. We are witnessing the highlight reel effect. We compare our blooper reel, our messy mornings, our insecurities, our unfinished projects, to everyone else's highlight reel. It is a mathematical equation for misery. The discrepancy between the reality we feel inside and the glossy perfection we see outside creates a vacuum in the soul. We call this vacuum inadequacy. Biologically, this triggers an ancient circuit. As social animals, humans are wired to track status. In the tribe, falling too far down the hierarchy meant less food, fewer mates, and a higher chance of death. So, when your brain perceives that everyone else is winning and you are stagnating, it releases stress chemicals. It signals that you are in danger of being left behind by the herd. This is why a simple scroll through a feed can leave you feeling hollow, heavy, and anxious, even if you were perfectly content 5 minutes prior. You have ingested a visual toxin. The insidiousness of this trap lies in its subtlety. It doesn't always feel like jealousy. Often, it just feels like not enough. I am not fit enough. I am not traveling enough. I am not happy enough. It is a quiet erosion of self-worth. To dismantle this trap, we must first shatter the illusion of the image. We must remember that social media is a performance art. It is editorial, not documentary. Imagine walking through a movie set. You see the facade of a beautiful Victorian house. It looks sturdy and inviting. But if you walk around the back, you see it is just plywood held up by 2x4s. There is nothing inside. Social media is often the facade. Your life, with its messy emotions, its dirty dishes, its genuine struggles, is the real house. It has a foundation. It has warmth. It has reality. We must also practice JOMO, the joy of missing out. FOMO, fear of missing out, is driven by the belief that the good life is happening somewhere else. It is happening at that party you weren't invited to, or in that city you can't afford to visit. JOMO is the delicious, cozy realization that the good life is happening right here, in the quiet integrity of your own moment. It is the joy of staying in. The joy of a book. The joy of a deep conversation with one person, rather than a superficial connection with 1,000. It is the understanding that you do not need to be witnessed to be real. A sunset that you watch alone, without photographing it, is just as beautiful, perhaps more so, because you gave it your full attention instead of trying to capture it for an audience. We must curate our digital environments ruthlessly. If you follow accounts that make you feel poor, ugly, or unsuccessful, unfollow them. This is not an act of pettiness, it is an act of hygiene. You are the curator of your own input. Fill your feed with art, with humor, with teachers, with nature. Fill it with things that make you expand, not shrink. And finally, we must shift our metrics. The world tells you to measure your life by external markers, likes, salary, square footage. But the antidote to anxiety is to measure your life by internal markers. How deeply did I sleep? How kindly did I speak to myself today? How much did I laugh? How present was I for my morning coffee? These are the metrics of a soul at peace. They cannot be photographed. They cannot be posted. They can only be felt. And in the end, the feeling is all that matters. Chapter 6, The Future Ghost. When we speak of ghosts, we invariably think of the past. We imagine spirits lingering in the hallways of history, rattling chains of regret or unfinished business. But for the anxious mind, the haunting does not come from what has already happened. It comes from what has not happened yet. We are haunted by the future ghost. This ghost is a shapeshifter. It takes the form of a failed project, a rejection letter, a medical diagnosis, or a lonely old age. It visits us in the shower, in the car, and most frequently, in the quiet solitude of 3 a.m. It whispers two powerful, paralyzing words: what if? What if I lose my job? What if she leaves me? What if this pain in my side is fatal? What if the economy collapses? This mental projection is what psychologists call catastrophizing. It is the brain's attempt to predict the future in order to prevent pain. The logic seems sound. If I can imagine the worst-case scenario, I can prepare for it. If I can foresee the disaster, I can build a bunker. But there is a flaw in this machinery. The brain does not distinguish between a threat that is happening and a threat that is merely imagined. When you vividly picture a disaster, your body reacts with the same chemical cascade as if the disaster were unfolding before your eyes. You suffer the tragedy 1,000 times before it happens, and, in 99% of cases, it never happens at all. You are paying interest on a debt you have not even accrued. The mind acts like an overworked screenwriter in a writer's room, pitched with the task of writing a drama. But because the anxious mind is biased toward survival, it only writes horror scripts. It ignores the plot lines where things go right. It ignores the neutral plot lines where things are just okay. It focuses exclusively on the cliffhangers. We do this because of a quirk in human psychology. We are allergic to uncertainty. Studies have shown that human beings would rather receive a mild electric shock now than sit in a room not knowing if a shock might come later. We prefer known pain to unknown outcomes. So, we fill the void of the unknown with monsters, because a monster we can see, even in our heads, feels more manageable than the empty fog of uncertainty. To exorcise the future ghost, we must learn to look at the fog without trying to sculpt it into a shape. There is a powerful technique for this, often used in Stoic philosophy and modern cognitive behavioral therapy. When the what-if spiral begins, do not try to stop it. Instead, follow it to the bottom. Ask yourself, and then what? What if I lose my job? Then I will have no income. And then what? Then I will have to use my savings. And then what? Then I might have to move to a smaller apartment. And then what? Then I will find another job, perhaps one I like better, or I will survive in the smaller apartment. Usually, when we drag the ghost into the light, we realize that the worst-case scenario is uncomfortable, but it is not fatal. We realize that we possess the resilience to handle it. The terror lies in the vague, undefined shadow of the what if. Once defined, the shadow loses its power. However, the ultimate truth is that the future does not exist. It is a cognitive construct. It is a dream. The only thing that is real, the only thing that has ever been real, is this exact second. Look at your hands. Wiggle your fingers. Listen to the room you are in. Is there a tiger here, right now? Is the catastrophe happening in this very second? Usually, the answer is no. In this second, you are breathing. You are safe. You are fed. The anxiety is entirely located in a time zone that has not arrived. The future ghost cannot touch you in the present. It can only scare you if you agree to travel to its domain. This is why the practice of grounding is so essential. It is the act of pulling your consciousness back from the timeline of tomorrow and anchoring it in the timeline of today. When you wash your hands, feel the water. When you walk, feel the gravity. These physical sensations are the ropes that tie you to reality. Mark Twain, a man who understood the human condition well, once quipped, "I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened." Do not let your life be a museum of tragedies that never occurred. When the future ghost appears, acknowledge him. Nod at him. But do not offer him a chair. Do not serve him tea. Let him float on by, while you return your attention to the warmth of the sun on your face, here, now. Chapter 7, The Perfectionist's Paradox. We have been trained to wear our perfectionism like a well-tailored suit. In job interviews, when asked to name a weakness, we coyly reply, "I am a perfectionist," implying that our flaw is actually a superpower. We believe that perfectionism is the hallmark of excellence, the driver of high achievement, and the rigorous standard that separates the wheat from the chaff. But to the anxious mind, perfectionism is not a suit, it is a straitjacket. It is a misconception that perfectionism is about the love of quality. If you dig down to the root, through the layers of ambition and diligence, you will find that perfectionism is not about the desire to do things well. It is about the fear of being seen doing them poorly. It is a defensive mechanism. It is a 20-ton shield we lug around to protect ourselves from the stinging arrows of judgment, criticism, or failure. The paradox of perfectionism is that it does not lead to perfect results, it leads to paralysis. Imagine an artist standing before a blank canvas. The perfectionist whispers in her ear, "Do not make a mark until you are certain it will be a masterpiece. If you paint a bad line, you are a bad artist." The pressure is so immense, the stakes so artificially inflated, that the artist's hand trembles. She puts the brush down. She cleans the studio. She organizes her paints. She does everything except paint, because to paint is to risk imperfection. This is the birth of procrastination. We often mistake procrastination for laziness, but it is rarely a defect of character. It is a defect of emotional regulation. We procrastinate because the task at hand triggers a fear of inadequacy. We avoid the work to avoid the potential shame of the result not matching the vision in our heads. In this state, life becomes a series of high-stakes exams. Every email must be witty, every dinner party must be gourmet, every conversation must be profound. The perfectionist allows no room for the rough draft. Yet, nature itself works in rough drafts. Evolution is a process of trial and error. A river does not flow in a straight line, it meanders, it floods, it adapts. A tree is not perfectly symmetrical, it is twisted by the wind and shaped by the sun. Its beauty lies in its adaptation, not its geometry. By demanding straight lines in a crooked world, we set ourselves up for chronic anxiety. We become brittle. Like glass, we are hard and polished, but if we are struck, we do not bend, we shatter. To heal from this, we must embrace a philosophy known in Japanese aesthetics as wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is the appreciation of the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. It is the beauty of a cracked teacup, prepared with gold lacquer so that the break becomes part of the history of the object. It is the moss on the stone. It is the understanding that nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. When we apply this to our own lives, the relief is physical. We realize that we are allowed to be works in progress. You are allowed to have a messy kitchen while you are cooking a meal. You are allowed to stumble over your words when you are trying to express a difficult emotion. You are allowed to be a beginner. We must replace the metric of perfect with the metric of good enough. Good enough sounds like a compromise to the high-achieving American ear. It sounds like settling. But in the context of mental health, good enough is a declaration of freedom. It is the realization that the law of diminishing returns applies to our efforts. Spending 3 hours writing an email might make it 100% perfect, but spending 15 minutes might make it 95% perfect. Is that last 5% worth 2 hours and 45 minutes of your life? Is it worth your sanity? The anxious mind says yes. The healthy mind says no. There is a profound vulnerability in letting go of perfection. It means letting people see the seams. It means publishing the blog post with a typo. It means inviting friends over when the house is a little dusty. But here is the secret: people do not connect with your perfection. They connect with your humanity. Perfection is cold, smooth, and unapproachable. Humanity is warm, textured, and flawed. When you drop the shield, you not only unburden yourself, but you also give permission to those around you to breathe easier. You signal that it is safe to be real. So, let us try a small experiment in mediocrity. Do something today, a small task, and do it imperfectly on purpose. Fold the laundry messily. Write a text message without proofreading it 3 times. Leave a dish in the sink. Observe the physical sensation that arises. The perfectionist will scream, chaos, ruin. But wait. Watch. Does the world end? Does the sky fall? No. The laundry is still folded. The message is still understood. The dish waits patiently. You are learning that the world is robust enough to handle your imperfections. You are learning that you are loved not for your performance, but for your presence. You are trading the exhaustion of the mannequin for the vitality of the living, breathing, stumbling human being. And that is a trade worth making. Chapter 8: The Anatomy of Control. If you pay close attention to the physical sensation of anxiety, you will notice that it almost always involves a contraction. It is a tightening of the gut, a clenching of the jaw, a curling of the toes inside the shoe. This is not accidental. It is the somatic manifestation of our deepest psychological urge, the desire to grab hold. The desire to control. We live with a pervasive illusion that we are the sole architects of our reality. We believe that if we just think hard enough, plan detailed enough, and worry intense enough, we can orchestrate the universe to our liking. We try to micromanage the moods of our spouses. We try to steer the opinions of our colleagues. We try to predict the fluctuations of the stock market. We stand at the helm of our lives, white-knuckling the wheel, convinced that if we relax our grip for even a second, the ship will crash into the rocks. But here is the bruised truth that the anxious mind refuses to accept: we control almost nothing. You do not control the traffic that makes you late. You do not control the weather that ruins the picnic. You do not control the virus, the economy, or the thoughts inside your boss's head. You certainly do not control the past, and as we discussed, you have very tenuous influence over the future. Anxiety is the friction caused by trying to control the uncontrollable. It is the exhaustion of trying to hold back the tide with a broom. The ancient Stoic philosophers, men who lived through plagues and tyrannies, proposed a solution that remains the most effective antidote to this specific form of suffering. They called it the dichotomy of control. It is a mental sorting mechanism. Imagine 2 circles. In the first, small circle is, what is up to me? In the second, vast circle is, what is not up to me? Inside the small circle, your words, your actions, your values, your perspective, your integrity. Inside the large circle, everything else. The outcome of your work. The reputation you have in others' minds. The health of your body, which you can influence, but not dictate. The world at large. The anxious person spends 90% of their energy living in the large circle. They obsess over how they were perceived at the party, not up to them. They obsess over whether the flight will be delayed, not up to them. They pour their vital life force into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. To find peace, we must ruthlessly retreat into the small circle. Consider the archer. This is a classic Stoic metaphor. The archer can choose the best bow. He can maintain the string. He can train his eye, perfect his stance, and time his release with his breath. All of this is in the small circle. But the moment the arrow leaves the string, it belongs to the wind. A sudden gust may blow it off course. The target may move. To base your self-worth on whether the arrow hits the bullseye is madness, because the arrow is no longer yours. You must base your self-worth only on the quality of your aim. Surrender is a word that sits uncomfortably in the modern American vocabulary. To us, surrender implies defeat. It implies waving a white flag and letting the enemy win. But in the context of the mind, surrender is not weakness, it is an alignment with reality. It is the wisdom of the willow tree, which bends in the storm and survives, versus the rigid oak, which refuses to bow and is snapped in half. When we let go of the need to control outcomes, we enter a state of active passivity. We work hard, but we hold the results loosely. We plant the garden with care, but we do not stand over the soil screaming at the seeds to grow faster. There is a terrifying freedom in this. If you stop trying to hold the ceiling up with your hands, your arms will ache less, but you have to trust that the roof won't collapse. And if it does collapse, then you will handle the rubble when it falls. But standing there, muscles trembling, anticipating a collapse that hasn't happened, is no way to live. Try to identify one area in your life today where you are forcing a result. Perhaps you are trying to force a conversation to go a certain way. Perhaps you are trying to force your body to look a certain way on a timeline that isn't realistic. Now, imagine physically opening your hands. Imagine the outcome is a bird resting in your palm. If you squeeze it to keep it safe, you crush it. If you open your hand, it may fly away, or it may stay. But either way, your hand is no longer cramping. You are no longer fighting the nature of things. The river of life flows in one direction. You can swim against it, thrashing and exhausting yourself, but you will still be carried downstream. Or, you can turn on your back, keep your head above water, and let the current carry you. You can use your energy to navigate the rocks, rather than fighting the water itself. Peace is not the absence of chaos. Peace is the acceptance that chaos is inevitable, and the knowledge that your internal rudder, your character, your breath, your attention, is the only thing you need to steer. Chapter 9, The Vegas Switch. We have spent much of our time thus far in the attic of the mind, rearranging the furniture of our thoughts and dusting off our philosophies. But sometimes, the storm is too loud to think. Sometimes, the anxiety is not a thought at all, but a purely physical event, a racing heart, a tightness in the chest, a trembling hand. In these moments, you cannot logic your way out of the loop. You cannot reason with a flooded nervous system any more than you can reason with a drowning swimmer. You must throw them a rope. That rope is biological. It is built into the wiring of your own anatomy. It is called the vagus nerve. In Latin, vagus means wandering. It is an apt name for the longest cranial nerve in the body. It snakes down from the brainstem, winding its way through the neck, branching out to touch the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, and the gut. It is the information superhighway connecting your brain to your vital organs. It is also the master switch for your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state. Think of your body as a high-performance car. The sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal, it revs the engine for fight or flight. The parasympathetic system is the brake. For the anxious person, the gas pedal is stuck to the floor. The vagus nerve is the only way to slam on the brakes. The most profound secret of stress management is this: the mind-body connection is a two-way street. We know the mind sends signals to the body, fearful thought equals racing heart. But the body also sends signals to the mind. If you can manually force your body into a state of calm, your brain must follow. It has no choice. It interprets the physical signal of safety as reality. Here are 3 ways to flip the switch. These are not meditation concepts, they are biological hacks. 1. The physiological side. This is the fastest way to reduce autonomic arousal in real time. It mimics a mechanism the body uses naturally during sleep to offload carbon dioxide. The action: inhale deeply through your nose. Then, before you exhale, take a second, shorter inhale on top of the first one to fully inflate the tiny sacs in your lungs. Then, exhale slowly and fully through your mouth, as if you are blowing out a candle through a thin straw. The science: that double inhale pops open the alveoli in the lungs, increasing the surface area for oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. The long, slow exhale slows the heart rate directly via the vagus nerve. Do this 3 times, and you will feel a physical drop in tension. It is unavoidable. 2. The mammalian diving reflex. If you are in a state of high panic, where the room feels like it is spinning and you cannot focus, you need a hard reset. The action: fill a bowl with ice water, or simply splash cold water from the tap. Lean forward, hold your breath, and submerge your face, specifically the area around your eyes and nose, into the cold water for 30 seconds. The science: this triggers an ancient survival reflex found in all mammals. When the face hits cold water while holding breath, the body assumes you are diving. It instantly slows the heart rate to conserve oxygen and shunts blood to the brain and heart. It is a physiological stop button. It snaps you out of the emotional loop immediately. 3. Vocal resonance. Have you ever noticed that is a staple of meditation, or that parents hum to soothe a baby? This is not magic, it is physics. The action: take a deep breath and hum. A low, long, rumbling hum. Make the sound vibrate in your chest and throat. The science: the vagus nerve passes right through the vocal cords. The vibration of humming stimulates the nerve mechanically, increasing vagal tone. This sends a signal of safety to the brain. A predator does not hum. A person in danger does not sing. Therefore, if you are humming, you must be safe. When you practice these techniques, you stop being a victim of your biology and become its operator. You are speaking the language of the nervous system, which is not English, it is sensation. The next time you feel the heat rising in your neck, do not ask, "Why am I anxious?" Do not go looking for the cause in your childhood or your bank account. Instead, look to the hardware. Where is your breath? Is your jaw tight? Engage the vagus nerve. Breathe out longer than you breathe in. Splash the cold water. Hum the tune. Bring the body back to neutral. You will find that once the physical alarm is silenced, the mental catastrophe often dissolves on its own. The thoughts were not the fire, they were just the smoke. And when you put out the fire in the body, the smoke in the mind clears. Chapter 10: The Art of Doing Nothing. In the lexicon of the modern West, there are few insults more cutting than calling someone unproductive. We treat time as a commodity to be mined, processed, and sold. Every hour must have an output. If you are sitting on a park bench staring at the leaves, you are wasting time. If you are not listening to an educational podcast while you fold laundry, you are missing an opportunity. We have optimized our lives to the point of suffocation, filling every white space in the calendar with activity, self-improvement, or entertainment. We have forgotten the vital, biological necessity of lying fallow. Consider the wisdom of the ancient farmer. He knew that a field could not produce a harvest every single year without end. If you plant corn in the same soil season after season, the nutrients are stripped away. The soil turns to dust. It becomes barren. To save the land, the farmer must let a field lie fallow. He must leave it alone. To the untrained eye, the fallow field looks like a waste of space. Nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, a profound regeneration is taking place. The soil is resting. The chemistry is rebalancing. It is preparing for the next season of growth. Your brain is no different. Neuroscience has a name for this state. It is called the default mode network, DMN. For a long time, scientists believed that when a person stopped focusing on a task, their brain went dormant. But brain imaging revealed a startling truth. When you stop doing and start being, a massive network of brain regions lights up. This is the factory floor of the subconscious. It is where the brain consolidates memories, makes unexpected connections, processes complex emotions, and generates creative solutions. When you are constantly scrolling, working, or consuming, you are effectively shutting down the default mode network. You are keeping the brain in task-positive mode. You are planting corn in the winter. You are denying your mind the recovery time it needs to make sense of your life. This is why your best ideas come to you in the shower, or while driving on a long, empty stretch of highway. It is because you have finally, accidentally, stopped trying. You have stepped out of the way and allowed the DMN to take the microphone. But in our current culture, we treat boredom as a disease. The moment a gap appears, in an elevator, in a checkout line, at a red light, we reflexively reach for the phone. We plug the gap with data. We are terrified of being alone with our own thoughts. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, in the 1600s, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. If that was true 400 years ago, it is a desperate emergency today. We must relearn the art of Niksen. Niksen is a Dutch concept that translates roughly to doing nothing. It is not meditation. Meditation is a practice. It has a goal, mindfulness. Niksen has no goal. It is the act of looking out a window and watching the rain. It is the act of sitting in a chair and listening to the hum of the refrigerator. It is the act of letting the mind wander where it wants to go, without guiding it or judging it. To the anxious achiever, this feels like torture. When you first attempt to do nothing, the withdrawal symptoms will kick in. Your brain will scream at you. This is useless. You should be answering emails. You are lazy. The itch to mobilize will be intense. But if you stay in the chair, if you ride out the first 5 minutes of discomfort, something shifts. The mud settles. Imagine a jar of river water, shaken up. It is cloudy, brown, and opaque. You cannot see through it. No amount of stirring will make it clear. The only way to clear the water is to set the jar down and leave it alone. Slowly, gravity does the work. The heavy sediment sinks to the bottom. The water becomes transparent. Anxiety is the sediment. Constant activity is the shaking. Doing nothing is the act of setting the jar down. We need to carve out sacred pauses in our day. This does not require a retreat to a mountain monastery. It requires 5 minutes. Try this the next time you finish a task, sending a big email, finishing a meeting, unloading the dishwasher. Do not immediately jump to the next thing. Do not pick up your phone as a reward. Just stop. Sit. Look at the play of light on the floor. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Let the previous moment finish resounding before you strike the next note. In music, the silence between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. Without the silence, there is no rhythm, only noise. Our lives have become a wall of noise. By practicing the art of doing nothing, we are inserting the rests back into the score. We are making music again, instead of just making sound. You will find that when you return to your work after 10 minutes of staring at the clouds, you are sharper. You are less reactive. You have more patience. You have let the field rest, and now it is ready to grow again. Chapter 11, The Nature Prescription. We are, biologically speaking, an outdoor species currently living in captivity. For 99% of human history, our daily existence was woven into the texture of the natural world. Our eyes evolved to scan horizons, not spreadsheets. Our ears evolved to detect the snap of a twig or the rush of water, not the hum of an HVAC system or the ping of a notification. Our feet were designed to mold themselves over uneven dirt and stone, not to flatten against concrete and tile. In the last century, a mere blink of an eye on the evolutionary clock, we have migrated indoors. We spend our days in climate-controlled boxes, traveling in metal boxes, to stare at glowing glass boxes. We have severed the umbilical cord that connects us to our origin. It is no coincidence that as our exposure to the natural world has plummeted, our rates of anxiety have skyrocketed. We are suffering from a collective case of homesickness, though we often cannot name the home we are missing. In the 1980s, the Japanese government noticed a similar spike in stress-related illnesses among their urban workforce. They did not prescribe more medication. Instead, they prescribed a practice called Shinrin-yoku. In English, this translates beautifully to forest bathing. The term bathing here is metaphorical. It does not involve water. It involves immersing oneself in the atmosphere of the forest, letting the woods wash over the senses. This is not hiking. It is not jogging. It is not a step-counting exercise to be tracked on a fitness watch. It is the deliberate act of wandering aimlessly among trees with the specific intent of slowing down. The science behind this is startlingly robust. When you walk into a forest, you are inhaling more than just fresh air. Trees and plants emit invisible organic compounds called phytoncides. These are the essential oils of the wood, designed to protect the trees from rotting and insects. When humans breathe in phytoncides, our bodies respond as if we have been given a sedative. Levels of cortisol drop. The sympathetic nervous system powers down. The immune system boosts its production of natural killer, NK, cells. But the healing goes beyond chemistry, it is also visual. Nature is filled with fractals, complex, self-repeating patterns that occur at different scales. The branching of a tree, the veins of a leaf, the jagged line of a mountain range. These are fractals. The human brain is uniquely hardwired to process these patterns with ease. Processing the harsh, straight lines of modern architecture, cubicles, skyscrapers, grids, requires cognitive effort. It taxes the brain. But looking at fractals creates a state of soft fascination. It engages the mind without tiring it. It is why staring at a fire or watching ocean waves feels so effortlessly hypnotic. It is the visual equivalent of a lullaby. To practice the nature prescription, you do not need a vast wilderness. You need a patch of green and a shift in attention. Go to a park, a garden, or a trail. Leave your phone in the car. This is non-negotiable. You cannot connect with the forest if you are connected to the internet. Walk slowly. If you are going anywhere in particular, you are moving too fast. Let your body guide you. Stop when something catches your eye. Engage the senses one by one. Sight, look at the way the light filters through the leaves. The Japanese have a specific word for this, kamaribi. Notice the different shades of green. Sound, listen past the traffic. Can you hear the wind in the upper branches? The scuttle of a squirrel? The crunch of dry leaves under your soles? Smell, breathe deep. Smell the damp earth, the pine needles, the decaying wood. This is the scent of life cycling into death and back into life. Touch, place your hand on the rough bark of an oak. Touch the velvet of moss. Feel the cool air on your skin. In this space, the timeline of your anxiety, which operates in seconds and minutes, collides with the timeline of nature, which operates in seasons and centuries. The trees do not hurry. The moss does not stress about its growth rate. The cycle continues, steady and indifferent to human drama. Standing next to a tree that has survived storms for 100 years puts your missed deadline into perspective. It reminds you that you are a small part of a much larger, living system. You are not a machine that needs to be fixed. You are an animal that needs to be habitat correct. We often think of nature as a luxury, a place we visit on vacation. We must reframe it as a necessity. Just as you need water and sleep, you need the fractal geometry of the wild. You need the silence that is not empty, but full of presence. If you cannot get to a forest today, start small. Buy a houseplant. Place your desk near a window. Eat your lunch on a bench outside, not at your desk. Reclaim your membership in the natural world. The doors are always open. The trees are waiting. And they require nothing from you but your breath. Chapter 12, The Architecture of Sleep. There is a cruel irony that sits at the heart of anxiety. The more exhausted you are, the harder it often is to fall asleep. We have all known the specific torture of the 3 a.m. ceiling stare. The body is heavy, aching for rest. The eyes burn. But the mind is a neon sign, flashing rapidly, cycling through regrets, fears, and trivialities. You calculate how many hours remain until the alarm goes off. If I fall asleep now, I get 4 hours. If I fall asleep now, I get 3 hours. With every calculation, the pressure mounts, and sleep retreats further into the distance. We treat sleep as a switch we can simply flip. We expect to run our engines at maximum RPM for 16 hours, absorbing blue light, caffeine, stress, and noise, and then, the moment our head hits the pillow, we expect the engine to go silent. But biology does not break on a dime. Biology requires a deceleration ramp. To reclaim our rest, we must stop viewing sleep as a loss of time, and start viewing it as the foundation of sanity. We must build an architecture of sleep, a physical and ritualistic structure that romances the Sandman. The first pillar of this architecture is the cave. For millions of years, humans slept in environments that were dark, cool, and quiet. Today, our bedrooms are often cockpits of technology. We have blinking LEDs on televisions, glowing digital clocks, and the pervasive beacon of the smartphone charging on the nightstand. Even this faint light can penetrate the eyelid and confuse the pineal gland, suppressing the production of melatonin, the hormone that signals darkness. We must aggressively darken the room. Blackout curtains are not a luxury, they are a medical device for the anxious. Cover the LEDs with tape. Turn the phone face down, or better yet, leave it in the kitchen. When you enter your bedroom, it should feel like entering a sanctuary, a place disconnected from the grid of the waking world. The second pillar is the thermal drop. Your body requires a drop in core temperature of about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate sleep. This is why it is so difficult to sleep on a hot, humid night. In our modern comfort, we often keep our homes too warm. The ideal sleeping temperature is shockingly cool, around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. By lowering the thermostat an hour before bed, or by taking a warm bath, which paradoxically cools the body down by drawing heat to the surface of the skin where it dissipates, you send a primal chemical signal to the brain: the sun has set. The air is cool. It is time to hibernate. The third pillar is the brain dump. The anxious mind refuses to sleep because it is afraid it will forget something important. It keeps juggling the to-do list, spinning the plates so they don't fall. To quiet this, you must outsource the memory. Keep a notebook and a pen, analog, not digital, by your bed. Before you lay down, write. Write down the 3 things that are worrying you. Write down the 5 things you need to do tomorrow. Once they are on the paper, you can say to your brain, "It is written down." We will not lose it. You can stand down now. You are closing the open loops that keep the subconscious active. Finally, we must address the psychological approach to insomnia itself. The biggest enemy of sleep is the effort to sleep. Sleep is a shy guest. If you chase it, it runs. If you demand it, it leaves. You cannot force yourself to sleep, you can only create the conditions for sleep to visit. If you find yourself lying awake for more than 20 minutes, do not lie there fighting. Do not wrestle with the sheets. This creates a psychological association between your bed and frustration. Instead, get up. Go to a different room. Keep the lights dim. Read a dull book. Listen to soft music. Do not look at screens. Stay there until you feel the heaviness of sleep pressure behind your eyes, the feeling that you can barely keep your lids open. Only then, return to the bed. You are retraining your brain to recognize the bed solely as a place for rest, not a place for ruminating. As you lie there, waiting for the tide to come in, let go of the need to be unconscious. Rest is also valuable. Just lying in the dark, muscles relaxed, breathing slowly, is restorative. Tell yourself, "I am just resting." If sleep comes, good. If not, I am still resting my body. By removing the performance pressure, you paradoxically open the door. You surrender the watch. You let the night wrap around you, trusting that the world will spin on its axis without your supervision for a few hours. Chapter 13, The Power of Ritual. In a world that feels increasingly like a ship tossed in a hurricane, the human mind craves an anchor. We are besieged by the unexpected. The stock market fluctuates, the weather patterns shift, the whims of our bosses change, and the notifications on our phones deliver a constant stream of surprises. This unpredictability is the fuel of anxiety. The primitive brain, the watchman, hates surprises. It views the unknown as a potential ambush. To suit this constant scanning for danger, we must introduce its opposite, predictability. We must build structures of certainty within our day. We must harness the power of ritual. There is a distinct difference between a routine and a ritual. A routine is a sequence of actions you perform to get a result. You brush your teeth to avoid cavities. You drive the same route to work to save time. A routine is utilitarian, it is a means to an end. A ritual, however, is a sequence of actions performed with heightened intention. It is not just about the result, it is about the experience of the action itself. It is a moment where you step out of the rushing river of time and stand on the bank. It elevates the mundane into the meaningful. Consider the Japanese tea ceremony. On the surface, it is just boiling water and whisking green powder. As a routine, it could be done in 2 minutes. But as a ritual, it takes hours. Every movement is choreographed. Every sound, the ladle touching the pot, the whisk hitting the bowl, is heard. The ritual is not really about the tea, it is about the cultivation of presence. It is a sanctuary built out of movements. You do not need to become a Zen master to benefit from this. You simply need to take the ordinary beats of your life and infuse them with attention. Let us look at the morning anchor. For the anxious person, the morning is often a race. But what if you carved out 10 minutes for a coffee or tea ritual? This is not about caffeine consumption. It is about the sensory process. Listen to the sound of the beans grinding. Smell the aroma rising from the cup, that deep, roasted earthiness that signals the start of the day. Feel the warmth of the ceramic against your palms. Do not drink it while checking email. Drink it while looking out the window. In doing this, you are sending a signal to your nervous system, I am safe. I have time. The day has not started until I say it has started. You are asserting control over your immediate reality. Equally important is the transition ritual. One of the great sources of modern stress is the bleeding together of our identities. We work from home, or we carry our work phones in our pockets, so we never truly leave the office. We are half employee, half parent, half partner, all the time. This fragmentation is exhausting. We need a clear boundary. We need a threshold. In the days of physical factories, the whistle blew, and the work ended. Today, you must blow your own whistle. Create a ritual that signifies the end of the professional day and the beginning of the personal day. It might be changing your clothes immediately upon finishing work. The act of taking off the work uniform, even if it's just a different shirt, and putting on home clothes, is a physical signal to the brain that the role has changed. It might be a walk around the block, a fake commute to wash the day off. It might be lighting a specific candle at 6 p.m. When you perform this ritual, you are mentally closing the file on the day's worries. You are saying, I am no longer the worker. I am now the human. And finally, the evening descent. Anxiety tends to spike at night because the distractions fade away. To counter this, create a sequence that leads you into the dark. It could be checking the locks on the doors, not out of fear, but as a deliberate act of securing your sanctuary. It could be washing your face, imagining that you are washing away the conversations and stress of the last 16 hours. Rituals work because they are repetitive. The brain loves repetition. When you do the same thing, in the same way, at the same time, the brain relaxes. It knows what comes next. It lowers the cortisol. It stops scanning the horizon for tigers because it recognizes the pattern of safety. These small ceremonies act as the punctuation marks in the sentence of your life. Without them, life is just a long, breathless run-on sentence. With them, there are pauses. There are commas. There are full stops. Start small. Pick one activity you do every day, making coffee, walking the dog, washing dishes, and decide to turn it into a ritual. Slow it down. Do it with reverence. Notice the details. In a chaotic world, these small acts of order are your fortress. They remind you that while you cannot control the wind, you can certainly set your own table. Chapter 14, The Sacred No. There is a specific, hollow sensation that occurs the moment you agree to something you do not want to do. It is a subtle sinking in the stomach. A tightness in the throat. A split second of internal recoil that is immediately covered up by a polite smile and the word, sure. We are a culture addicted to yes. We view accessibility as a virtue and unavailability as a sin. We have been conditioned, particularly those of us with high empathy, to believe that our primary function is to accommodate the needs of others. We believe that saying no is an act of aggression, a rejection that will sever the bond of relationship. But for the anxious soul, this addiction to yes is a slow-acting poison. Psychologists often refer to this as the fawn response. We know about fight, flight, and freeze. But fawn is the fourth survival mechanism. It is the instinct to appease the threat to stay safe. If I am helpful, if I am indispensable, if I am nice, then I will not be hurt. I will not be abandoned. The problem is that this safety comes at an exorbitant price. The currency you are paying with is your own life force. Every time you say a dishonest yes, a yes that contradicts your internal reality, you create a debt of resentment. You are not just agreeing to a task, you are agreeing to suppress your own needs. You smile at the colleague who dumps extra work on your desk, but inside, you are seething. You agree to the dinner party when you are exhausted, but you spend the entire evening fantasizing about being home in bed. This internal friction generates heat. It generates anxiety. You become a pressure cooker of unexpressed needs. We must learn the architecture of the sacred no. A sacred no is not an excuse. It is not an apology. It is a boundary. It is the realization that your energy is a finite resource, like a bank account. You cannot withdraw endlessly without making a deposit. If you spend your energy on everyone else's priorities, you will be bankrupt when it comes time to tend to your own. The first step in learning to say no is to pause the reflex. For the chronic people pleaser, yes is automatic. It bypasses the brain. Someone asks, and you agree before you've even taken a breath. Adopt a new policy, the 24-hour rule. When someone asks for your time or energy, whether it is a committee, a social event, or a favor, your default answer is, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you." This buys you the most valuable commodity of all, distance. In that space, you can ask yourself the honest questions. Do I actually want to do this? Do I have the energy? If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Am I saying no to my rest? To my family? To my sanity? When you decide to deliver the no, keep it clean. We have a tendency to over-explain. We offer elaborate lies about why we can't make it. I would love to, but my cat is sick, and my car is acting up, and... This is the jade trap: justify, argue, defend, explain. You do not need a court-admissible reason to protect your time. No is a complete sentence. I won't be able to make it. That doesn't work for my schedule. I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. These are complete answers. They are polite, but they are firm. They are the walls of your fortress. When you first start setting boundaries, you will feel a wave of intense discomfort. You will feel guilt. The anxious mind interprets this guilt as a moral failing. I am a bad person. I am selfish. But let us reframe this. Guilt is often just growing pains. It is the sensation of breaking an old pattern. It is better to feel a moment of acute guilt than to live in a state of chronic resentment. Resentment is the cancer of relationships. If you always say yes when you mean no, you eventually begin to hate the people you are trying to please. You view them as thieves stealing your time, even though you are the one leaving the door unlocked and handing them the valuables. By saying no, you are actually protecting the relationship. You are ensuring that when you do say yes, it is a wholehearted, genuine yes. It is a yes that comes from a place of abundance, not obligation. Imagine your life as a garden. If you have no fence, the neighbor's dogs run through it, the deer eat the flowers, and people trample the seedlings. It is chaotic and ruined. A fence does not mean you hate your neighbors. It means you love your garden. You put up the gate so that you can choose who enters and when. The sacred no is that gate. It is the tool that allows you to cultivate a life of integrity, where your outer actions match your inner truth. It is the only way to find peace in a world that will always ask for more than you can give. Chapter 15, The Imposter in the Mirror. There is a specific, cold dread that visits the successful. It is not the fear of failure, but rather the fear of exposure. It strikes in the boardroom, in the lecture hall, or in the quiet moments after a promotion. You look around at your colleagues, your peers, or your audience, and a single, paralyzing thought crystallizes in your mind. If they only knew. If they knew I was making this up as I go along. If they knew how hard I have to work just to keep up. If they knew that I am actually a terrified child wearing a suit, they would escort me out of the building. This is the voice of the imposter. It is a cruel paradox that this voice is often loudest in those who have achieved the most. You would think that accolades, degrees, and track records of success would silence the doubt. But the imposter syndrome operates on a different frequency. It interprets success not as proof of competence, but as proof of deception. I fooled them again, it whispers. But sooner or later, the luck will run out, and the mask will slip. To the anxious mind, life feels like an elaborate heist. You are constantly waiting for the tap on the shoulder. You are waiting for the moment the police arrive to strip you of your title and your dignity. This phenomenon is not a defect of character, it is a defect of perception. It is a failure to internalize one's own agency. When something goes wrong, the imposter takes full blame, I am incompetent. When something goes right, the imposter attributes it to external factors, I got lucky, the timing was right, they had low standards. The tragedy of the imposter is that it keeps us small. It prevents us from speaking up in meetings because we fear we will say something foolish. It prevents us from applying for the reach job. It keeps us in a state of chronic, low-grade hypervigilance, constantly scanning for evidence of our own inadequacy. To dismantle the imposter, we must first understand that the feeling of not knowing what you are doing is not a sign of incompetence. It is a sign of growth. If you feel entirely comfortable, if you know exactly what to do every second of the day, it means you are stagnating. It means you are overqualified for your current reality. The moment you step into a new challenge, a new role, a new relationship, a new creative endeavor, you are, by definition, a beginner. You are supposed to feel uncertain. The anxiety is not the sound of failure, it is the sound of expansion. We must also confront the pluralistic ignorance. This is a social psychology term that describes a situation where a majority of group members privately reject a norm, but incorrectly assume that most others accept it. In the context of imposter syndrome, it means this: you look at others and you see their outsides, their polished presentations, their confident smiles, their curated biographies. You compare that to your inside, your doubt, your fear, your messy process. You assume everyone else has the instruction manual to life, and you are the only one who lost their copy. But the truth is far more democratic, everyone is making it up. The CEO is guessing. The parent is improvising. The artist is stumbling in the dark hoping to find the light switch. We are all drafting the map while we walk the terrain. The only difference is that some people have made peace with the uncertainty, while the imposter views it as a crime. To combat this, we need to move from subjective feeling to objective evidence. The imposter thrives on feelings. I feel like a fraud. But feelings are not facts. When the voice speaks, you must act as a lawyer for the defense. You must present the exhibits. Create a victory file. This can be a physical folder or a digital document. In it, place every email of praise you have received, every positive performance review, every thank you note, every concrete metric of a project you delivered. When the imposter screams, "You are useless," you open the file. You read the evidence. You force your brain to reconcile the lie with the data. You are not arguing with your self-esteem, you are arguing with the record. Furthermore, we must change our relationship with the phrase, "I don't know." To the imposter, "I don't know," is a death sentence. It is the confession of guilt. But in reality, "I don't know," is the gateway to expertise. The most confident people in the room are often the ones willing to ask the simplest questions. They are not afraid of looking stupid because their self-worth is not tied to being omniscient. It is tied to their ability to learn. The next time you feel the mask slipping, take a breath. Look at the people around you. Realize that behind every pair of eyes is a similar struggle. We are all actors on a stage, hoping we remember the lines. You are not a fraud. You are a human being in the process of becoming. You have earned your seat at the table. Do not let the ghost of insecurity convince you to give it up. Chapter 16, The Narrative of Should. If you could record the internal monologue of the anxious mind and play it back, you would notice a specific word appearing with alarming frequency. It is a small, seemingly innocent auxiliary verb, yet it carries the weight of a sledgehammer. The word is should. I should be married by now. I should be making more money. I should be thinner. I should be happier. I should have called my mother. I should not be feeling this way. Psychologist Karen Horney famously called this the tyranny of the shoulds. It is a mental regime where the reality of who you are is constantly at war with the fantasy of who you think you ought to be. This gap, the chasm between the real self, the messy, imperfect human reading this book, and the ideal self, the flawless, tireless, always cheerful avatar you constructed in your head, is the breeding ground of neurosis. Anxiety lives in that gap. The wider the gap, the more intense the suffering. When you use the word should, you are arguing with reality. You are looking at the present moment and declaring it invalid. If it is raining outside, and you stand at the window screaming, "It should be sunny," we would call you delusional. You are fighting the weather. You cannot win. Yet, when you feel sad and say, "I should be happy," you are doing the exact same thing. You are fighting your own emotional weather. You are telling your nervous system that its current state is unacceptable. This does not make you happy, it simply adds a layer of guilt on top of the sadness. Now, you are sad and you are ashamed of being sad. This narrative creates a life of perpetual obligation. You are no longer living, you are performing. You are an actor trying to hit the marks of a script written by society, by your parents, or by your own insecurities. The should is a rigid taskmaster. It allows for no context, no nuance, and no mercy. If you are exhausted after a 60-hour work week, the should says, "You should go to the gym." If you skip the gym to sleep, the should says, "You are lazy." It ignores the biological reality of your fatigue. It cares only about the rule. To dismantle this tyranny, we must audit our language. We must catch the should in the act and replace it with a word that restores agency, could. Should implies a command from above. Could implies a choice from within. I should go to the gym feels like a prison sentence. I could go to the gym is an option. It reminds you that you are free. If you decide not to go, you own that choice. I am choosing to rest today. Suddenly, the guilt evaporates. You are not a failed athlete, you are a person prioritizing recovery. We must also examine the source of these shoulds. Whose voice is that? When you think, "I should own a house by 30, is that your desire? Or is that the voice of the economy, your culture, or a comparison to your peers? Often, we find that we are carrying around a backpack full of rocks that belong to other people. We are exhausted trying to fulfill expectations that we never actually agreed to. There is a profound peace that comes from surrendering to what is. This is not resignation. It is not giving up on growth. It is simply acknowledging the starting line. You cannot navigate to a destination if you lie about your current location. If you are anxious, do not say, "I should be calm." Say, "I am anxious. My heart is racing. This is my reality right now." If you are behind on a project, do not say, "I should be finished." Say, "I am not finished. I am here." What is the next step? By removing the should, you remove the resistance. You stop wasting energy fighting the phantom of the ideal self and can finally direct that energy toward the real self. The real self is allowed to be tired. The real self is allowed to be confused. The real self is allowed to have a messy apartment and a wandering mind. When you stop whipping yourself for not being perfect, you create a safe environment within your own skin. You become a friend to yourself, rather than a prosecutor. And ironically, it is only when we stop demanding that we change that we finally become free to do so. Chapter 17, The Myth of Arrival. There is a destination on the map of your mind called there. It is a beautiful place. In there, the bank account is always full, the children never scream, the body is permanently fit, and the house is finally renovated. In there, you are not anxious. You are not rushing. You have finally put down your heavy bags and are sipping a cold drink on a porch, bathed in the golden light of eternal satisfaction. We spend our entire lives trying to buy a ticket to there. We convince ourselves that life is a waiting room, a temporary inconvenience we must endure until we can finally walk through the door of arrival. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will relax when the kids leave for college. I will stop worrying when I pay off the debt. This is the arrival fallacy. It is the collective delusion that happiness is a coordinate in time that we can reach, inhabit, and possess. It is the belief that once we solve our current set of problems, we will be finished. But have you noticed the pattern? You get the promotion, and the euphoria lasts for a week. Then, the new responsibilities set in, the new stress arrives, and you set your eyes on the next promotion. You buy the dream house, and within 6 months, it is just the house. It has a leaky faucet. It has a lawn that needs mowing. The golden light fades into the fluorescent hum of daily maintenance. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The human brain is designed for adaptation. When something good happens, we feel a spike of joy, but our nervous system quickly recalibrates. We normalize the new standard of living. What used to be a luxury becomes a necessity. We return to our baseline level of happiness, but now we are running faster just to stay in the same place. The tragedy of the myth of arrival is that it tricks us into postponing our lives. We treat the present moment as a hurdle to be jumped over. We rush through the bedtime story to get the child to sleep so we can have a me time. We rush through the project to get to the weekend. We are constantly leaning forward, off balance, trying to grab the future while trampling the present. The horizon is an optical illusion. If you walk toward the horizon, it moves away from you. No matter how far you travel, the distance between you and the horizon remains exactly the same. There is the horizon. You will never reach it, because there is not a place. It is a mental projection. The only place that exists is here. This realization can be initially depressing. The ego screams, "You mean this is it? This laundry? This traffic? This is the life I worked for?" But if you sit with it, the realization transforms into a profound liberation. If there is no destination, then there is no rush. If you are not trying to get there, you can finally settle into here. The mountaineer climbs the mountain. He suffers the cold, the wind, and the exhaustion, fueled by the vision of the summit. When he finally stands on the peak, he sees a magnificent view. But he cannot stay there. The wind is too cold, the air is too thin. He must descend. If his entire joy was contingent on standing on the peak, he has spent months of misery for 10 minutes of glory. But if he learned to love the climb, the crunch of the snow, the camaraderie of the team, the strength in his legs, then the entire journey was the reward. We must shift our focus from the outcome to the process. Anxiety lives in the outcome. Will it work? Will they like it? Will I finish? Peace lives in the process. I am writing this sentence. I am chopping this carrot. I am listening to this friend. When you detach from the outcome, you become bulletproof. You do the work because the work itself is worthy, not because of what the work will get you. You love your family because love is a verb, not because you are trying to sculpt them into a perfect portrait. Stop waiting for the storm to pass. The storm may never pass, or if it does, another one will roll in behind it. Learn to dance in the rain. Learn to build a fire in the cave while the thunder rolls outside. You have already arrived. You are breathing. You are conscious. The problems you have today are simply the texture of being alive. Do not wish them away in favor of a fantasy future that will never come. Embrace the messy, imperfect, beautiful friction of here. It is the only real thing you have. Chapter 18, The Stoic Fortress. 2,000 years ago, the most powerful man on earth sat in a damp tent on the frozen frontier of the Danube River. He was surrounded by war, plague, and betrayal. His name was Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome. By all accounts, the pressure on his shoulders should have crushed him. Yet, he possessed a calm so profound that his private journals, never intended for publication, survived as the greatest manual on mental resilience ever written, Meditations. Marcus practiced Stoicism. Today, we often misuse the word stoic to mean a person who has no emotions, a stone statue who feels no pain. This is a tragic misunderstanding. The Stoic feels everything. They feel grief, they feel love, they feel fear. But they do not let those emotions sack the city of their mind. Imagine your mind as an inner citadel. Outside the walls, the world is chaotic. There are barbarians at the gate. There are storms. There are arrows of criticism and slings of misfortune. Most people live outside the walls. They are exposed. When it rains, they are wet and miserable. When they are praised, they are high. When they are insulted, they are crushed. They are slaves to circumstance. The Stoic lives inside the keep. The core tenet of this philosophy is simple, yet it requires a lifetime to master. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Let that sink in. If your car breaks down, that is an event. It is a collection of metal and plastic that has ceased to function. It is neutral. The atoms do not care. The universe does not care. But the moment you say, "This is a disaster. My day is ruined. Why does this always happen to me?" you have added a judgment. You have painted the neutral event with the color of catastrophe. It is the judgment that causes the anxiety, not the broken engine. The Stoic warrior practices the discipline of ascent. Imagine a thought approaching the gate of your citadel. It looks like a messenger. It shouts, "Your boss hates you. You are going to be fired." The anxious person opens the gate immediately, lets the messenger in, and believes him. Panic ensues. The Stoic stands on the wall and says, "Stop. Let me see your credentials." The Stoic strips the thought naked. He looks at the facts. Fact, my boss sent a short email. Fact, my boss is busy. Theory, he hates me. The Stoic accepts the facts but rejects the theory. He denies the messenger entry. He remains calm because he refuses to assent to a false impression. This is the ultimate superpower. You cannot control the world, you cannot stop the car from braking or the boss from being grumpy, but you have absolute sovereignty over your own opinion of it. If you decide that an event is not bad, but merely something to be navigated, you remove its teeth. You cannot be harmed if you do not feel harmed. We must also adopt the tool of a more fatty, the love of fate. Friedrich Nietzsche, though not a classic Stoic, described this formula for human greatness, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. This is the anti-anxiety maneuver. When things go wrong, the anxious mind resists. It screams, "No. This shouldn't be happening." This resistance creates suffering. It is the friction of the mind grinding against reality. Amor fati is the act of leaning into the friction. It is saying, this happened. Good. I will use it. The flight was cancelled. Good. I will read my book. I lost the contract. Good. I will learn where my pitch was weak. I am stuck in bed with the flu. Good. I will finally rest. Marcus Aurelius used the metaphor of a blazing fire. If you throw a small twig into a weak fire, the fire is smothered. But if you have a roaring, healthy fire, and you throw a giant log into it, the fire consumes the log. It wraps around it. It turns the obstacle into fuel. It burns higher and brighter because of the obstacle. Your goal is to be the fire. When you practice amor fati, you become terrifying to your fears. What can anxiety do to a person who welcomes every outcome? If you are afraid of losing your money, anxiety has a hold on you. If you accept that losing your money would be difficult, but decide that you would turn that poverty into a lesson in humility and resourcefulness, then anxiety has no leverage. This is not about being passive. It is about being ruthlessly active in the only domain that matters, your own mind. You are building a fortress that travels with you. So, the next time the world feels overwhelming, retreat into the Citadel. Close the heavy oaken doors. Remember that the chaos is out there, but the peace is in here. You are the emperor of your own soul. Do not abdicate the throne to a temporary emotion. Chapter 19, The Gravity of Gratitude. To the cynical ear, the word gratitude sounds soft. It belongs on greeting cards, in needlepoint pillows, and in the platitudes of well-meaning ants. When you are in the trenches of anxiety, fighting a war against your own nervous system, being told to count your blessings feels not only unhelpful but insulting. It feels like being told to treat a broken leg with a smile. But we must strip the word of its hallmark veneer and look at the mechanics underneath. Gratitude, when practiced correctly, is not a sentiment. It is a neurological strategy. It is a weapon. To understand why, we must return to the architecture of the brain. As we have discussed, your brain is an ancient survival machine. It is designed to keep you alive, not to keep you happy. To ensure survival, the brain operates with a distinct negativity bias. Psychologist Rick Hansen describes this perfectly. The brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. If you receive 9 compliments and 1 criticism today, what will you be thinking about while you brush your teeth tonight? You will be dissecting the criticism. You will be replaying the tone of voice, the phrasing, the implication. The 9 compliments will have slid off your mind like fried eggs off a non-stick pan. This is not because you are ungrateful, it is because your ancestors who ignored the tiger to admire the sunset were eaten. You are the descendant of the paranoids. Anxiety is essentially a hyperactive searchlight scanning the horizon for threats. It looks for what is wrong, what is missing, and what is dangerous. It does this automatically, 24 hours a day. Gratitude is the manual override of this searchlight. When you practice gratitude, you are forcibly grabbing the handle of that light and pivoting it 180 degrees. You are commanding the brain to scan the environment for safety, for resource, and for pleasure. This is not about ignoring reality or pretending that pain does not exist. It is about correcting the data set. If you only look at the threats, you are operating on a skewed map of reality. You are seeing the weeds but missing the garden. Gratitude adds the flowers back onto the map so that you can see the whole terrain. The catch is that the brain resists this. It feels inefficient to focus on the good. The good feels safe, and therefore boring to the survival brain. To make gratitude work, you have to get specific, and you have to get visceral. General gratitude, I am grateful for my family, is weak. It is too abstract. The brain nods and moves on. Specific gratitude, I am grateful for the way my daughter laughed when the dog sneezed, is potent. It forces the brain to replay a sensory memory. There is a phenomenon known as the Tetris effect. In a study at Harvard, participants who played the game Tetris for hours a day began to see falling blocks everywhere they looked, in the bricks of buildings, in cereal boxes, in their dreams. The brain had been trained to scan for patterns. You can create a gratitude Tetris effect. If you spend 2 minutes every day scanning your last 24 hours for 3 specific moments of joy, you begin to rewire the reticular activating system, RAS, the bundle of nerves at your brainstem that filters information. After a few weeks, your brain starts doing this automatically. It starts scanning the world for positives, just as naturally as it used to scan for threats. You walk into a room and instead of noticing the awkward tension, you notice the sunlight hitting the floor. You have changed the filter through which you experience the world. But you must feel it. When you identify a moment of gratitude, do not just list it. Savor it. Hold it in your mind for 15 seconds. Let the feeling sink in. This duration is crucial. It takes roughly 10 to 20 seconds of sustained attention for a positive experience to move from short-term memory buffer into long-term storage. You are literally installing a new neural structure. You are turning the Teflon into Velcro. Anxiety relies on a scarcity mindset. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough safety. I am not enough. Gratitude forces an abundance mindset. I have this breath. I have this cup of tea. I have this friend. It is physically impossible for the brain to be in a state of high beta anxiety and a state of genuine gratitude at the exact same time. They use different chemical pathways. Gratitude releases dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters of contentment. It lowers cortisol. It regulates the heart rate. So, tonight, do not just go to sleep. Go on a hunt. Look back through the debris of the day and find 3 nuggets of gold. They can be tiny. The temperature of the shower. The sound of a favorite song. The fact that the traffic light turned green. Write them down. By writing them, you etch them deeper. You are building a reservoir. On the days when the anxiety is overwhelming and the world feels dark, you can draw from this reservoir. You will know, with cellular certainty, that there is still light to be found, because you have trained your eyes to see it. Chapter 20, The Somatic Ledger. We often treat our bodies like taxicabs for our brains. We view the body merely as the vehicle that carries the mind from meeting to meeting, from the bed to the desk. We believe that anxiety is a mental health issue, implying that it lives exclusively in the gray matter between our ears. We think that if we can just find the right logic, the right mantra, or the right medication, we can talk our brain into submission. But anyone who has ever felt their stomach drop before a difficult phone call, or felt the phantom weight of a heavy chest long after a crisis has passed, knows the truth. The mind may analyze the anxiety, but the body houses it. There is a profound axiom in the field of trauma therapy: the mind forgets, but the body remembers. To understand this, we must look at the mechanics of survival. When a gazelle is chased by a lion, its body is flooded with massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol. It runs for its life. If the gazelle escapes, it does not immediately go back to grazing. It stops. It trembles. It shakes violently for a few minutes. This shaking is not a symptom of fear, it is the cure. The animal is physically discharging the massive buildup of survival energy. It is completing the stress cycle. Once the shaking stops, the gazelle returns to the herd, trauma-free. Modern humans have lost this ability to discharge. When your boss yells at you, your body prepares to fight or flee just like the gazelle. But you cannot punch your boss, and you cannot run out of the office. You sit still. You swallow the rage. You smile. Where does that energy go? It does not evaporate. It gets trapped in the tissues. It settles into the fascia, the connective tissue that wraps your muscles like a bodysuit. Over years of chronic stress, this energy calcifies into what Wilhelm Reich called body armor. It becomes the permanently hunched shoulders. It becomes the shallow breathing. It becomes the chronic lower back pain that no chiropractor can fix. Getty Images. One of the primary warehouses for this stored emotion is the psoas muscle. Often called the muscle of the soul, the psoas is the deepest muscle in the human body, connecting the lumbar spine to the top of the thigh bone. It is the muscle responsible for lifting your leg to run. When the fight or flight system is triggered, the psoas contracts to pull you into a fetal ball, the ultimate defensive posture. If you are chronically anxious, your psoas is chronically tight. It is sending a constant, low-grade signal to your brain stem that says, "We are in danger. We are curled up. Stay alert." You can say positive affirmations all day, but if your deep core muscles are bracing for impact, your brain will not believe you are safe. This is why talk therapy sometimes hits a wall. You cannot think your way out of a tight hip flexor. You have to move your way out. We need to learn how to open the somatic ledger and pay off the debt. The most effective way to do this is through nonlinear movement. Most exercise we do is linear and rigid. Running on a treadmill, lifting weights in a specific plane of motion. This is good for fitness, but it often reinforces the armor. To release emotional holding, we need movement that is fluid, chaotic, and expressive. Consider the practice of shaking. It sounds primitive, and it is. Stand in your living room. Put on music with a heavy drum beat. Start by bouncing on your heels. Let your knees be soft. Let your hands flop loosely at your wrists. Shake your arms. Shake your hips. Let your jaw hang open. Make sound. For the first minute, you will feel ridiculous. Your civilized brain will sneer at you. Look at you, jiggling around like a fool. Ignore it. Keep going. After 3 or 4 minutes, something shifts. You might feel heat rising. You might feel a sudden urge to cry, or to laugh. This is the thawing effect. You are vibrating the armor loose. You are allowing the trapped kinetic energy to finally move through and out of the system. We must also reclaim the hips. Because the hips are the center of our fight or flight mechanism, they are often the tightest part of the anxious body. In yoga, it is well known that hip opening poses, like pigeon pose, often induce tears. This is not pain, it is release. When you stretch the deep tissue of the hip, you are literally stretching the memory of past fears. Your body is not just a biological machine, it is a biography. It carries the history of every time you were scared, every time you were hurt, and every time you had to hold your tongue. Treat it with the tenderness you would show a frightened animal. Do not force the release. You cannot pry the armor off with a crowbar. You must melt it with warmth and movement. This week, try to spend 10 minutes a day inhabiting your body without a goal. Dance in the kitchen while the pasta boils. Stretch on the floor while watching TV. Roll your shoulders. Massage your own jaw. When you befriend your body, when you stop treating it as a donkey to be whipped and start treating it as a partner to be held, the anxiety loses its physical foothold. You are making your skin a safe place to live again. Chapter 21, The Breath as Anchor. There is a tool you carry with you every second of your life. You do not need to buy it, you do not need to charge it, and you cannot lose it. It is the most potent anti-anxiety medication available, and it is completely free. Yet, most of us use it incorrectly. We are speaking, of course, of the breath. To understand why the breath is so critical, we must look at the unique position it holds in human biology. Your body operates on 2 primary systems, the voluntary nervous system, things you control, like moving your hand, and the autonomic nervous system, things you don't control, like your heartbeat or digestion. Respiration is the only function that exists in both worlds. You breathe automatically when you sleep. But you can also take the wheel. You can choose to hold your breath, speed it up, or slow it down. This makes the breath a bridge. It is the control panel that allows your conscious mind to hack into your subconscious operating system. By changing how you breathe, you can manually change how you feel. The anxious person breathes in a specific, dysfunctional pattern, shallow, rapid, and high in the chest. This is panic breathing. It upsets the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. When you breathe too fast, hyperventilation, you blow off too much carbon dioxide. This causes the blood vessels in the brain to constrict, leading to lightheadedness, tingling in the fingers, and a sense of unreality, symptoms that often trigger a full-blown panic attack. To reclaim your calm, you must reclaim your diaphragm. Here are 2 advanced protocols used by elite performers, from Navy SEALs to opera singers, to regulate the nervous system under extreme pressure. 1. Box breathing, the tactical pause. This technique is used by Special Forces operators to lower their heart rate before a mission. If it can keep a soldier calm in a combat zone, it can certainly keep you calm during a stressful meeting. Visualize a square box. Each side of the box represents a count of 4. Side 1, inhale, breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Fill your belly, then your ribs, then your chest. Side 2, hold the breath at the top for a count of 4. Do not clamp your throat shut, just let the air suspend there, like a ball floating on water. Side 3, exhale, breathe out through your nose for a count of 4. Smooth and steady. Side 4, hold the lungs empty for a count of 4. Sit in the void. Repeat this cycle for 5 minutes. The magic lies in the holds. The pauses force your autonomic nervous system to down-regulate. It creates a rhythm. When the mind is racing at 100 miles per hour, imposing a slow, geometric rhythm forces the mind to sync up with the body. You are physically incapable of remaining in a state of high panic while maintaining a 4-4-4-4 breathing rhythm. 2. The 4-7-8 technique, the natural tranquilizer, developed by Dr. Andrew Weil. This technique is specifically designed for deep relaxation and sleep. It focuses on the ratio of inhale to exhale. The secret is the long exhale. When you inhale, you stimulate the sympathetic system, gas pedal. When you exhale, you stimulate the parasympathetic system, brake. By making the exhale twice as long as the inhale, you are pressing the brake pedal to the floor. The inhale, 4, breathe in quietly through the nose for 4 seconds. The hold, 7, hold the breath for 7 seconds. This allows oxygen to fully saturate the bloodstream. The exhale, 8, exhale forcefully through the mouth, making a whoosh sound, for 8 seconds. This is the release valve. This requires practice. An 8-second exhale can feel like an eternity to a beginner. You may feel air hunger. That is okay. It is a sign that your carbon dioxide tolerance is low. Stick with it. After 4 cycles, you will feel a physical wave of heaviness wash over you. It is a sedative effect. Beyond the mechanics, there is a philosophical power to the breath. The breath is always in the present tense. You cannot take a breath for yesterday. You cannot take a breath for tomorrow. You can only breathe for now. Anxiety is almost always a disorder of time travel, regretting the past or fearing the future. When you focus your entire attention on the sensation of air entering and leaving your nostrils, you are forcibly pulling your consciousness back into the only moment that actually exists. Think of your mind as a kite, whipping around in the wind of your thoughts. The breath is the string. If you let go of the string, the kite flies away into chaos. If you hold the string, you can anchor the kite. You can bring it back down to earth. The next time you feel the walls closing in, do not try to think your way out of it. You cannot fight thoughts with thoughts. That is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Instead, drop into the body. Find the breath. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In that space, in that pause, you will find the quiet center you have been looking for. It has been under your nose the whole time. Chapter 22, The Clutter Connection. Look around you. Right now. Lift your eyes from this text and scan the room you are inhabiting. What do you see? Do you see clean lines, open surfaces, and objects that have a designated home? Or do you see stacks of unread mail, a tangle of charging cables, a chair buried under laundry, and shelves overflowing with knickknacks you haven't touched in years? We tend to think of clutter as a nuisance, a housekeeping issue. We tell ourselves, I'm just a little messy, or I'm a creative genius, chaos is my process. But for the anxious mind, clutter is not just a mess. It is noise. Every single object in your field of vision demands a microscopic amount of attention from your brain. Your eyes scan the room. That cup needs to be washed. That bill needs to be paid. That book needs to be read. Even if you are not consciously thinking these thoughts, your visual cortex is processing the data. When your environment is crowded, your brain is forced into a state of chronic, low-level multitasking. It is trying to focus on your work or your relaxation, but it is simultaneously keeping track of 1,000 different stimuli. This creates cognitive overload. It is the visual equivalent of trying to have a conversation in a room where 100 radios are playing different stations at low volume. You might be able to function, but it is exhausting. In a landmark study, researchers at UCLA's Center on Everyday Lives of Families, CLF, observed 32 families and found a direct, biological link between the density of objects in the home and stress levels. Specifically, they found that in mothers, levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, spiked when they were dealing with their belongings. The home, which should be a sanctuary of restoration, had become a source of physiological threat. Clutter is often a physical manifestation of deferred decision-making. Pick up an item from a pile, a piece of junk mail, for instance. Why is it in the pile? Because when you brought it inside, you didn't want to decide whether to file it or shred it. You said, "I will decide later." You put it on the counter. Then you did that with a receipt. Then with a magazine. A clutter pile is a monument to procrastination. It is a physical stack of to-do lists. Every time you walk past it, your subconscious registers it as an unfinished task. It whispers, "You are behind. You are failing." To quiet the mind, we must quiet the room. This is not about becoming a minimalist who owns one fork and sleeps on the floor. It is about spatial hygiene. It is about recognizing that your outer environment is a reflection of your inner state, and conversely, that you can change your inner state by altering your outer environment. Start with the surface rule. Flat surfaces, tables, desks, countertops, are magnets for clutter. They seem to beg to be covered. Your goal is to clear them. There is a profound, almost spiritual relief in looking at a completely empty table. It represents potential. It represents a blank slate. When the eye can travel across a room without snagging on obstacles, the mind relaxes. The visual noise drops to zero. Next, address the emotional clutter. Much of what we keep out of guilt or fear. The ugly vase your aunt gave you. The expensive coat that never fit right. The textbooks from college 20 years ago. We hold on to these things because getting rid of them feels like a betrayal of the past or a waste of money. But keeping them is a betrayal of the present. Ask yourself, does this object serve the person I am today? Or is it an anchor to a person I used to be? If an object makes you feel guilty, ashamed, or heavy when you look at it, it is toxic. Evict it. Your home is a living space, not a storage unit for your guilt. When you begin to clear the physical debris, you will notice a strange phenomenon. You will feel lighter. You will breathe deeper. It is as if the air in the room has changed. By curating your possessions, you are retelling the story of who you are. You are saying, I am a person who values peace over accumulation. I am a person who respects my own attention. Do not try to clean the whole house in a day. That is a recipe for a panic attack. Pick one drawer, one shelf, one corner. Create a small island of sanity in the chaos. When you feel overwhelmed, look at that clean corner. Let your eyes rest on the order you created. It is proof that you have agency over your world. Order is not about perfectionism. It is about kindness. It is about gifting your future self a space where they can think, breathe, and rest without being screamed at by their own possessions. Chapter 23, The Social Battery. We must speak now of the invisible currency you spend every day. It is not money, and it is not time. It is social bandwidth. For the anxious individual, the world of human interaction is not a playground, it is a minefield of microcalculations. Every conversation requires a performance. You must listen to the words, Decode the tone, monitor your own facial expressions, ensure you are making the correct amount of eye contact, and search your database for a witty response, all while a low-grade alarm rings in the back of your mind asking, do they like me? Am I being awkward? Do I have spinach in my teeth? This hypervigilance is metabolically expensive. There is a pervasive myth that divides the world into two camps, extroverts, who love people, and introverts, who hate people. This is a clumsy falsehood. The distinction is not about affection, it is about energy. Imagine your social energy as a battery. For the extrovert, interaction is a charging cable. They plug into a crowd and gain power. For the sensitive or anxious soul, interaction is a high-drain application running in the background. You may love your friends deeply. You may enjoy the party. But you are running on battery power. And when the battery hits zero, you do not just get tired. You crash. We call this the social hangover. It arrives after a weekend of weddings, family reunions, or intense networking. It feels like a physical illness. You become irritable. Sounds become too loud. The fabric of your clothes feels abrasive. Your brain feels wrapped in cotton wool. This is not a defect in your character, it is a biological limit. You have maxed out your dopamine receptors. You have engaged in empathy fatigue. To survive in a noisy world without becoming a hermit, you must become a ruthless accountant of your own energy. First, you must identify the vampires. We all know them. These are the people who leave you feeling physically gray after a 20-minute coffee date. They feed on reassurance. They dump their chaos into your lap and walk away lighter, while you walk away carrying their burden. You must limit your exposure to vampires. You are not a rehabilitation center for broken souls. You are not the emotional dumping ground for someone else's drama. It is not an act of cruelty to screen their calls, it is an act of self-preservation. Second, you must master the art of the Irish exit. Society tells us that leaving a gathering requires a grand ceremony. You must say goodbye to the host, hug every guest, and offer an excuse for your departure. This pressure often keeps us trapped in rooms long after our battery has died. Release this obligation. You are allowed to slip away. You are allowed to leave the party while you are still having fun, rather than waiting until you are miserable. Leave at the peak, not the trough. Third, and most importantly, you must build solitude sandwiches. If you have a high-stakes social event on Saturday night, you must bookend it with silence. Saturday morning is for quiet. Sunday morning is for recovery. You cannot stack social events back-to-back like Tetris blocks without the structure collapsing. The anxious mind fears that if we withdraw, we will be forgotten. We fear that if we say, I can't come tonight, I need to rest, our friends will stop inviting us. But true friendship is not based on your attendance record, it is based on your connection. A friend who loves you will understand your need for hibernation. A friend who requires you to burn yourself out for their amusement is not a friend, they are a consumer. Respect your battery. When the warning light flashes, do not push through. Do not apologize. Simply unplug. Retreat to the quiet. Recharge. The world will be there when you return, and you will be far better equipped to love it. Chapter 24, The Roommate from Hell. If a stranger walked up to you on the street and began to speak to you the way you speak to yourself, you would call the police. Imagine it. A person following you to the grocery store, leaning over your shoulder while you look at the vegetables, and whispering, "You look fat in those jeans." Everyone is staring at you. You're going to mess up the dinner party tonight because you are fundamentally unlovable. You are a fraud, and it is only a matter of time before you are found out. You would not tolerate this abuse from a partner. You would not tolerate it from a boss. You would certainly not tolerate it from a friend. Yet, we tolerate it from the voice in our own heads. We not only tolerate it, we believe it. We mistake this malicious commentary for the truth. This is the inner critic. And of all the adversaries we have faced in this book, from the cortisol to the clutter, from the social vampires to the phantom future, this one is the final boss. The inner critic is not a demon. It is a biological mechanism gone rogue. In psychology, we understand that this voice often originates as a protective measure. It is the internalized echo of authority figures, parents, teachers, society, who tried to correct us to keep us safe. It is the part of the brain that thinks, if I criticize myself first, and if I criticize myself hardest, then nobody else can hurt me. It believes that shame is a motivator. It believes that if it whips you, you will run faster. But you are not a donkey. You do not run faster when you are whipped, you just run more anxiously. You become brittle. The critic operates on a loop. It generates a negative thought, I am awkward, which creates a negative feeling, shame/anxiety, which leads to a negative behavior, withdrawing/stuttering, which reinforces the original thought. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy engine. To defeat the critic, we must first realize a startling metaphysical truth. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears the voice. If you can listen to the critic, that means there are two entities in the room. There is the voice, the stream of neurotic thought, and there is the listener, the conscious awareness. You are the listener. You are the sky, the critic is just the storm passing through. The most effective strategy for dealing with this roommate is not to argue with him, logic rarely works on fear, but to name him. Give your inner critic a persona. Make it ridiculous. Call him the goblin. Call her Miss Trunchbull. Give the voice a silly accent. Visualize it as a small, angry cartoon character jumping up and down on a control panel. When the thought arises, you are going to fail this presentation, do not spiral. Instead, pause and say, I see the goblin is awake today. He is very loud. Thank you for your opinion, goblin, but I am driving the car right now. This technique, known as cognitive diffusion, creates a crucial millimeter of distance between you and the thought. You stop being in the emotion and start observing the emotion. The moment you can observe it, you have broken its spell. You strip it of its authority. It is no longer the voice of God, it is just a spasm of the amygdala. We must also practice the art of self-compassion. This is difficult for high achievers. We fear that if we are kind to ourselves, we will become soft, lazy, and complacent. We equate self-criticism with ambition. But study after study shows the opposite. Self-criticism activates the threat defense system, releasing cortisol that inhibits the brain's learning centers. Self-compassion activates the mammalian caregiving system, releasing oxytocin that promotes confidence and resilience. Imagine a child learning to walk. If the child falls, do you scream, "You idiot! You clumsy failure! You'll never walk"? No. You say, "It's okay. You're doing great. Up you go. Try again." Why do you deserve less tenderness than a toddler? You are also learning to walk. You are learning to navigate a complex, frightening world. You are doing the best you can with the nervous system you were given. The next time the critic launches an attack, try a radical countermove. Place your hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your palm against your chest. This physical touch releases oxytocin. Speak to yourself as you would speak to a beloved friend who is suffering. I know you are scared. I know this is hard. But you are safe. You are enough. We will get through this. It will feel forced at first. It will feel like you are faking it. Fake it anyway. The brain learns through repetition. You are reparenting yourself. You are slowly evicting the bully and replacing him with a supportive coach. The inner critic will never disappear completely. It is part of the human condition. But he does not have to sit at the head of the table. He can be relegated to the back seat, muttering quietly while you blast the music and drive toward the horizon. You are not your thoughts. You are the vast, silent awareness behind them. And that awareness is untouchable. Chapter 25, The Quiet Center. We have walked a long road together. We have traversed the tangled forests of the nervous system, climbed the jagged peaks of the anxious mind, and descended into the quiet valleys of the breath. We have dissected the chemicals, analyzed the habits, and confronted the ghosts that haunt the hallways of our thoughts. Now, we arrive at the end. And at the end, I must tell you the truth that I could not tell you at the beginning. The truth is this: there is no cure for being human. Throughout this book, we have spoken of anxiety as something to be managed, regulated, and understood. But we must be careful not to view it as a stain to be scrubbed away until we are bleached white and empty. To be human is to vibrate. To be human is to care, to fear, to love, and to lose. As long as you have a pulse, you will have resonance. You will feel the tremor of the world. The goal was never to become a stone. The goal was never to reach a state of permanent, flatlined bliss where nothing touches you. That is not peace, that is a coma. The goal is equilibrium. Imagine the ocean. On the surface, there is chaos. There are crashing waves, foaming whitecaps, and violent winds. If you live your life on the surface, reacting to every headline, every email, every stray thought, you will be battered. You will drown in the noise. But if you sink down, just 5 meters, 10 meters, the water changes. The noise of the storm dulls. The light becomes diffracted and gentle. The current slows. And if you go deep enough, to the very bottom, there is a stillness that has not changed for 1,000,000 years. The storm can rage above, destroying ships and reshaping coastlines, but the deep ocean remains untouched. You are the ocean. Your anxiety is just the waves. It is the weather on the surface. It is real, yes. It is loud, yes. But it is not the whole of you. It is a thin layer of turbulence sitting on top of miles of depth. The quiet center we have been seeking is not a destination you travel to. It is a place you sink into. It has been there the whole time. It was there before you were born, and it is there right now, underneath the worry about tomorrow's meeting. You now possess the map to this depth. You have the breath, the anchor that pulls you down from the surface. You have the Vegas switch, the brake pedal for the racing heart. You have the stoic fortress, the mental wall that keeps the barbarians out. You have the power of the no, the shield that protects your energy. You have the compassion to forgive yourself when you falter. Because you will falter. You will have days where the tools don't seem to work. You will have nights where the watchman screams and the sleep does not come. You will lose your temper. You will spiral. When this happens, do not despair. Do not tell yourself, I have failed. I am back at square one. You are not back at square one. You are simply on the surface again. And because you have read these words, because you have done this work, you know the way back down. You know that the stillness is waiting for you. We are living in a time of great noise. The world is louder, faster, and more demanding than it has ever been in human history. It will try to pull you out of yourself. It will try to monetize your attention and weaponize your fear. To remain calm in such a world is an act of rebellion. To sit quietly in a room is a radical stance. To breathe slowly when everyone else is panting is the ultimate power. As you close this book or remove your headphones, I want you to take one final moment of recognition. Look at yourself. Look at what you have survived. You have navigated 100% of your hardest days. You have walked through fires that you thought would consume you, and here you are, perhaps a little singed, perhaps a little scarred, but standing. You are more resilient than you believe. You are vast. You are capable. Do not be afraid of the noise. Let it thunder. Let it rain. You know where the sanctuary is. It is not in a temple, or a retreat center, or a pill. It is inside the ribcage. It is in the space between the inhale and the exhale. Welcome home to yourself.